Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our third installment in the AI Meets Integration series. Today's session is delivering AI-ready data in real time. We are really excited to have Dave Schuman, our Chief Data Officer, precisely as one of our speakers today, as well as Brittany Schultz from Product Marketing. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dave and Brittany. Hey, Dave, really great to see you today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hi,
How are you
Brittany.
doing?
Oh, good. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I feel like AI is such a buzzword and there's so much that is out there that is not necessarily like we don't understand it very well. So I think that hopefully this conversation will help clear a couple things up for some people and help them understand a little bit more about AI and how that relates to getting real-time data. So I think that actually brings me to my first question though. So when we actually talk about something like real-time data delivery, it can mean a lot of different things to different people. So how would you define like real-time data in the context of like AI and analytics tools?
Well, I start by saying that it's data that's fresh enough.
Sure.
And I kind of look at this in a longer term horizon. We've been trained to think about data coming at us on cycles. And those
Mhm.
cycles typically have been batch, and the batch has typically been days. So our training has said when you come in the morning, you will have new information for you to work with, and you will process that information and think about setting up your day.
Mhm.
And what real-time information allows us is to course correct with signals that are coming at us um, throughout the day. And so now we're not set in this one batch framework like I came in, I knew it, and tomorrow we'll learn something different.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, I'm picking up new signals and new insights along the way, and I'm allowed to react to those. And AI is allowed to react to those. And that's what
Yeah.
I think really gets cool about this is, as humans, we kind of have limitations to how much information we can take in. But with AI, we can tell it that these are the things that are important to me. Keep an eye on it all and let me know when these happen so that I can act. And I think that's
Mhm.
where this gets really exciting is it takes out the latency between the event that is happening and our ability to react to it. And that combination, real time information and AI, is where that benefit comes together. But it also comes with a challenge
Yeah.
because we used to think about things like data quality in that I got all my data loaded in and then I could run a bunch of checks against it and know that the data that I was working with was of high quality.
Mhm.
We have to deal with this now, the signal coming in, where as we're processing the signal, we say, does this fit within our standards and our expectations? And
Yeah.
does it fit into the pattern of data that we know? And if not, I need to intercept before my decision making processes start working on that to go, wait a minute, this is a data outage or I have a data gap here.
Mhm.
Don't make a decision on this data. And that sort of data quality, data observation that has to happen, the observability of these signals is important as we create AI processes that are going to be using them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really good point. And I guess something else that it makes me wonder about is the fact that, like, I guess not everything does necessarily need to be real time, right? So many organizations are still running batch data processes. I know Precisely is one of them, right? So what do you think are some of the limitations or what are some of the drawbacks of that when it comes to using AI?
Um, so, and precisely like I think many companies today is kind of a mix of real time and batch and micro batch oriented signals. And I was saying in this, which is not all data needs to fly first class. And so some of the data that we have, yeah, we're going to be taking that in real time and we want to be able to act on that in real time. And that it's worth us investing in the systems and processes to make sure that that data is good. But other things I can continue to maintain, maybe not necessarily in a full on batch cycle, but in micro batch and be able to continuously add information in. But I have these intercepts along the way that allow me to process this. Also, real time architectures can be expensive, especially as you move into more cloud based systems.
Yeah.
So we have to decide what our clock speed is going to be for data. And if the cost of doing that in real time is equal to the benefit that we're going to get from that.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think that again, like this can get really expensive. I hear about customers who are trying to do things in real time and then suddenly they get their cloud bill and it's huge and they were not expecting that. And I'm sure that that is pretty common. Um, Having organizations choose batch over real time and kind of what those look like or some examples of those.
Um, when we think I think more to how do we work with more of this real-time data, and
Yeah,
it's about the type of things that you need to do in a timely fashion. So I
sure.
look at fraud detection, personalization,
Mm,
dynamic pricing. Those are all types of benefits that we're going to get from these systems, but they benefit by having real-time data
yeah.
and sort of that sort of veracity of the data, the full sort of viewpoint of that data.
Mhm.
To get to that, though, we have to build our systems and processes to be able to ingest that. You could say to somebody, "Hey, I'm going to be able to give you real-time information throughout the day." You're like, "Cool," but I don't have that kind of time to be constantly going back to ingesting that information. So how can you
Mhm.
process that for me and tell me about the things that are important? We used to look at doing these kind of intercept systems. I did this with a large manufacturer, and we had an opportunity to put these insights in the hands of field facing individuals. And the limits we found out was they had about an hour that when they were going onto a facility, and in an hour they had a whole series of things they could do, and they could do between 3 and 5 things that we were going to tell them in real time. And so we really had to prioritize. We looked at this. We had hundreds of things. We were like, you could do all of this stuff. They're like, no, give me just the things that I can focus on and I can achieve, and I don't feel overwhelmed. There's a psychological element to this too. If you know that you have 100 things that just backed up on you and you could only do three, or if I gave you 3 things and you did all three, you feel a lot better about the second case there, where I gave you a
Yeah.
set of insights, but you got them all knocked out. And so it was incumbent on us in our building out of our systems to make sure that we built that level of prioritization.
Yeah. And I guess that's even more important when you bring AI into the picture, right? Because they don't necessarily have the same physical and psychological limitations that we have as humans. So I guess that use case prioritization is really important.
Also, the human likes to feel in control. And I love this about we had a predictive algorithm that was working on real time data, and we actually put the answer in the box. And
Okay.
all the person had to do was hit accept, and it would push the order through. And what we found is that almost half of the time, the person was overriding what the algorithm had said.
Huh.
And so we moved that. We moved the box over one and we said, here is the value we suggest that you put in here, but you actually have to take control and put it in there. And we were over 95% of the time that the human took our values and put it in the box. And but we're like, but this isn't as efficient. This isn't as good. And yet it was getting us better results by allowing the human to feel like they had control in the process. So real-time information delivered into an AI model, but you still have to say, what is the actor at the end of this going to do with that information? And
Yeah.
how do I play into the psychology of them using this data in an effective way?
Huh. Something that I've never thought about before. It's like you still, even though this is all AI stuff, you still have to think about who's the human in the loop,
Yeah,
right? Because hopefully, I mean, I don't want to lose, like, I want to have my job for a while. So hopefully we'll continue to have that as time progresses. Yeah.
I'd like to
Um,
see us moving. I'd like to see us evolving in some of the
yeah.
decisions we're making. That that example bummed me out a little bit because there's a just a pure inefficiency of putting the value here and making them enter it into the box.
Yeah.
And I really wish that we were moving forward to that. I haven't seen the results since then, and I'd love to see if the humans got more comfortable to say, I'm going to just, would you mind putting that in there? I'm taking the value all the time anyway
Mhm.
now. But it's part of that acceptance.
Interesting. And I wanted to go back to something that you had talked about a little bit earlier and just kind of double click on it. So, I mean, we all know that AI is only as good as the data that we give it. But how do you think that companies can incorporate things like governance, quality, and observability strategies so that they can ensure that the results that they're getting from their AI is reliable?
I have a philosophy around governance
Yeah,
that I shouldn't be telling people what they can't do. I should be telling them how they can do it.
sure.
And so that governance shouldn't be a blocker, it should be an enabler. The same thing with this concept around these data policies or lineage tracking, where we can say, here's how this is going to help you get the thing done that you want to get done.
Mhm.
That's where governance is, I think, a winning strategy. Where I see people implement governance and the thou shalt not sort of syntax of this, it ends up being seen as a constricting agent rather than an enabling agent. So I think governance should be viewed as an enabler. And by setting up the policies to help people, have the guidelines to know what they should be doing with this, what the fair use of this data, what is the acceptable outcomes that are that a consumer or that a data contributor would say, I am glad that you were using my data in this fashion, not, oh, I'm really surprised that you did that.
Right. Um, and I guess as we're continuing to incorporate more data, continuing to incorporate more AI, how do you feel like technology leaders can strike the right balance between innovation, getting somewhere new and exciting, while still maintaining this really strong data foundation and being able to remain like compliant
Yeah.
and what different industries are requiring nowadays?
I think in some ways, simplicity wins. So
Sure.
think about how you would standardize your platforms. How do you avoid tool sprawl? How do you make sure that all your new components fit into this architecture and solve a clear business need? And it takes some planning. It takes some consideration to what your architecture should be and how you can leverage things. Candidly, APIs are our friends and they play well together. I see MCP servers coming into that same sort of role in the organization. We'll build out
Yeah.
tools. Those tools should be able to coexist. So if in a specific element of my strategy, I built out this set of tools, I now want to be able to use them in a number of different ways. Um, I also say start small, like pick out some small, high value pilots that you can achieve, clean and document your data, align your stakeholders, and then standardize standardize your platform and simplicity wins.
Yeah. And it sounds like it is not just the tools, right? It's the people, it's the processes, it's the culture around how you're building all of this. There's a lot more to it, I think, than just finding the right vendor and, clicking buy on the right thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so you talked about having something that may be a little bit smaller, but can still have high impact, maybe be a little bit low risk. Do you have any customer examples of customers doing that as they're trying to innovate? Ideally, somebody who's maybe using data in real time.
Um, so I had a conversation with a life insurance customer of ours about using CDC and streaming data to replicate their IBM data to AWS. And their whole principle on this was how could they unlock the capabilities of this data? They said, free their data to be able to do with other tooling, other processes on this. And as I was talking to the customer, it sort of struck me that every time that they were talking about how they were adding value, it came up with the power of and. So I was
Sure.
doing this and this. I combined this data and this other data. Here was my transaction data, and I organized it here and correlated it to my web activity data or my mobile data. And I think that these kinds of use cases where I can take data from within the application constraints of where it's operating very well, but free that data, liberate it out to a platform that allows me to apply other tool sets to it and to be able to experiment on that data. So I think that's a real example for us about how one of our customers was doing that with their environment and IBM iData with CDC.
Yeah. And I feel like that's really important because IBMI data is seen as like data coming off of a legacy system, but it's still full of super context rich, like great customer data that people across the organization can use. So I think that's pretty high value.
Yeah.
Um, so next question here would be, what do you think are a couple first steps that organizations can take to build some momentum around this, or what are some common pitfalls that they should avoid as they're beginning to incorporate these new tools into their systems, make sure that their data is AI ready?
I'm one, I think you need to start off with just cataloging the data that you want to use and making sure that you have clear definitions for what it is, how it can be used, the nature and construction of that data, and what its quality elements are. So that fundamentally for me is build a data catalog. That's where we start prior to building any semantic models off of our data, is a strong catalog, well-defined data products within our environment to be able to enable this next piece, which is build a semantic layer on this, and then have some very discrete outcomes that you're testing for. I like
Yeah.
to see 10 questions. So if I'm going to say we're building out a model here and it's going to do something, give me your 10 topics that you want this really to succeed at. I'll go back into that to the catalog itself. If you're asking for things in your dimensionality of your questions that don't exist in the data model, it's going to fail from up front. Once we establish that, then it's tuning and testing the semantic model with our AI to make sure it's delivering the accurate sets of results. And get those 10 things right before you move on.
Yeah, I guess that is something that, there is that saying like move fast and break things in tech, and maybe we don't want to be doing that, especially when it comes to AI. We want to be taking a step back and really understanding what it is you want to be getting out of your tools and processes, and then actually delivering on that before moving forward. That makes a lot of sense.
I think another good thing to say around AI is how would you do it without AI? And so the
Yeah.
question comes out, can I throw AI at this? Tell me what the process would be if your human mind was doing this and you just want to be able to build a scale and autonomy around that. And if you can't describe the I would do this and I would use these signals, then you haven't really thought of something that the AI is going to be able to take the next step on.
It's very interesting. I actually think we're out of time, but I do want to thank you so much. This was super interesting, and I think people are going to get a lot of out of it. So thanks, Dave. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
Brittany, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to our speakers for diving deeper into delivering AI-ready data in real time. If you're interested in seeing more conversations like this one, you can check out any of the sessions that we've done in this AI Meets Integration series, all of which will be available on demand. And if you would like to go deeper into this topic of real-time data and AI, feel free to hop over to precisely.com to see more demos, white papers, and case studies. If you're interested in a conversation with some of our Precisely experts on this topic, you can feel free to go to precisely.com/contact for a 30-minute personalized demo. Thank you again so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.